Well, the trade that held us hostage for pretty much all of Wednesday finally gets done Wednesday evening. Juan Soto, no longer a San Diego Padre. He is a Yankee Todd strain. We thought this might be happening. We thought this might be coming. There was talks and they weren't talking, and then they were talking again, and then they were at the 1 yard line, and then there was a holdup and medicals and this and that. And finally, I think it was Joel Sherman was the first to say, guys, this is all really happening. And everybody else jumped on board. Padres, Yankees made it official. Here we are to discuss the trade of Juan Soto to the New York Yankees. Touch train.
I felt like the wait from when this broke this morning to now was longer than Soto's actual time in San Diego. Man, the wait for the trade to become official was longer than the time Soto was actually in a Padres uniform. But it's here. We knew it was coming. It's about what you expected to get. So here we are.
I was hoping there'd be some surprise once the official details came together. Not the case, but plenty to discuss. So without further ado, the walk-up music. Well, Todd, we knew this was probably coming. Juan Soto to the Yankees. Juan Soto no longer a San Diego Padre. That part, it seemed to be moving in that direction. And so today's news, certainly not a surprise, especially given what the conversations, the reports, the rumors have been of late. But now I would say there were two big storylines, questions facing the Padres going into this offseason. Who will the manager be, and will Juan Soto still be around in 2024? Both those have been answered. And your reaction to today's news that it is all real, it has all happened, and the Padres lose a generational talent for the sake of the betterment of maybe the overall roster construction.
My initial reaction is I'm sad because the Padres did not achieve what they had hoped to achieve and what many fans thought they could achieve with Juan Soto. I'm sad because as a sports fan and a baseball fan and a Padre fan, I like to see stars like Juan Soto play in San Diego. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. He's electric. He produced like a machine this past season. So to not have him in the lineup is a huge loss to the Padres. He's also a left-handed bat that helps balance out this lineup. He is now gone. In his place, we have 4 pitchers who neither of them come with Hall of Fame resumes. It's kind of a wait and see. But as you said, it gives us some organizational depth, some payroll flexibility, which are all important. It's just a bummer not to have Juan Soto in San Diego. And his stay was so short and left so much on the table. I feel like it's just disappointment, Darnay. It's a disappointing Soto era in San Diego. What are your immediate thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the one thing that, you heard a little bit, with just kind of last couple days and people discussing it and this and that, just how they were supposed to get 3 postseasons out of the deal, right? Yeah. That was the whole idea. You get them in 2022. They got that. You get 23 and 24. And so even if you're not able to keep them around long term, you get 3 postseason runs, and you hope that you have some magic. They had a little bit of magic in 2022, but then didn't do enough to even get there in 2023. And I think that's where a lot of the disappointment lies, because I think for a lot of people, they thought, okay, worst case scenario, you give up a bunch of prospect talent and young guys, but you have one of the best hitters in the game, one of the best talents in the game to help prop you up for the postseason and to help you out when it really matters. And they didn't get that beyond 2022. And, look, he was an instrumental part of that 7th inning rally against the Dodgers. So we'll always have that. He'll always have that. Yeah. Padre fans will always look back fondly on that. But the fact that they didn't even get a second postseason out of the guy, I think that's where there's a lot of disappointment. I will say, I feel myself being fairly emotionless about it today, because I think I just kind of came to grips with, like, this is what's happening. and it makes sense just in terms of where they are. Now, if you want to backtrack a year and have this conversation and evaluate it then, before the Bogarts deal, before the Cronenworth deal, before the Darvish deal, then maybe you have a different discussion and different response, because maybe this was avoidable. And maybe if you don't pay Xander so much, maybe if you don't pay Cronenworth more than you need to, earlier than you need to, have kind of the weird positional fit, all that. If you allocate that money perhaps differently, maybe more responsibly, you're in a position where, and I just talked to Kyle Glazer, friend of the podcast, Baseball America, about that. And I was like, is it unfair to kind of paint it that way on AJ Preller? And he's like, look, if you do that, like none of these contracts operate in a vacuum, and they all have an impact on one another. And if you make some different decisions, maybe you can keep Soto, maybe you can also keep like Waka and Lugo as well. And you're not so desperate to get arms. And so that's where I think, if there is some frustration from the fan base, I think there will be just the fact that you traded a guy like Juan Soto. Then if the other layer to that is, well, we didn't have to be in this position, I can certainly understand that. And I think there is some merit to that frustration of, hey, we kind of backed ourselves into this position where we had to operate, we had to maneuver in this way, and lose a talent like Juan Soto when that wasn't necessarily something that had to happen if you go back a year and kind of hit reset.
Oftentimes revisionist history is unfair, but in this case it's perfectly fair, because you are exactly right. All those things are true. The Padres backed themselves into this corner financially by the contracts they gave out. Many say too large a contracts, some say too willy-nilly in case of the Xander Bogaerts contracts, and some say too early in the case of Darvish, the extensions for Darvish and Jake Cronenworth. So yeah, but as you said, the reason they did all those things was they really thought last year was their year, and they went all in, and it all went south, and now they're kind of unwrapping that mess, and this is the latest maneuver from that.
Yeah, and I think they also, before we get too far, I do want to say, if you are watching, we appreciate that first and foremost, and definitely do chime in. Let us know what you think. Let us know about the return. Your thoughts on Juan Soto being dealt and the team having to kind of make this move. Did they get enough back? What do you want to see going forward with the offseason? Chime in. We'll include your comments on the pod. Always appreciate that. And always appreciate you watching and listening. I forgot where I was going from there, but I should say, some things you didn't necessarily know were going to happen. There was probably some inkling that like the Bally Sports deal was going to fall through. They're going to lose some money there. But what the team did, and what you appreciate, is they got a clear idea of like what their financial ceiling is and how much they could devote to the roster. And be sustainable. We know that word. And at least they went for it, and they realized, okay, that number they were at last year, we can't operate there, 240 or whatever it is, 240 million, whatever it was. But we can operate closer to 200 million, which is not a small number, which there's a lot of baseball teams and successful baseball teams that operate well below 200 million. They're still going to be like in the top third of the league. So it's not like this isn't a fire sale. They're not just dramatically slashing costs and that sort of thing. It was just this one instance of this one player taking up too much of the payroll. They needed to spread it out a little bit. But at least they went for it, got a better idea of what they could handle year to year, and then made this move. We should probably mention the specifics of the move. I feel like I'm glossing over it because like we've all known all day long.
Yeah. No, one quick follow-up on what you said. You are exactly right, but I think the huge frustration for many Padre fans is basically saying, because of the deals we did, most Padre fans would say, we'd rather be spending our money on Soto and not on Bogaerts and Cronenworth. Sure. Now it's not quite that simple, but that's what I hear from Padre fans, and I think that's what a lot of people in San Diego and within baseball say, why did you need to spend on Bogaerts and Cronenworth? Keep that money for Soto. Keep that in your arsenal, so to speak. So now let's get to the specifics.
I think that's fair. The fact of the matter is, you might not have been able to keep Juan Soto either way.
Correct. Correct.
And so now
he's going to market. He's going to be a
Yeah.
free agent.
Yeah. But the $33 million this year, you might have been able to devote to him. We were just again glossing right over the fact that Trent Grisham is part of this deal, but this is the Juan Soto trade. Let's be real;
Yes.
It's the Juan Soto trade. Trent Grisham a part of that, and so a reset at center field.
Trent Grisham just struck out again while you were talking,
but made an incredible catch at the wall. I'll tell you what.
Sure.
Yes, a reset at center field, which I think a lot of people, including yourself, Todd Strain, were ready for. We value and appreciate his contributions in center field. Can be very fun to watch. Can be fun to watch when he gets on a heater at the plate, but those didn't come around as often as they needed to. And I think after the season, it was clear it was time to move on. The return, bunch of pitchers: Michael King, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, Drew Thorpe, and then Kyle Higashioka from the New York Yankees. Michael King, I guess the centerpiece is Peter referring. Peter saying we got Profar. Is that your center field piece for this season?
I like the Korean center fielder. I think they're going to get him, but that's for later in the podcast.
Yeah. Profar is at very least good for vibes, as we saw towards the end of last year. So, keep that guy on retainer. Yeah. Michael King, the centerpiece, and the guy that there seemed to be a little bit of wrestling over. Yankees appeared hesitant to part with Michael King, and they get a guy that some injury stuff in the past, a guy that can obviously, work for you in the bullpen, but the thought, I think kind of Lugo-esque, maybe Nick Martinez-esque. Hopefully it turns out more like Lugo than Martinez, where this is a guy that we can transition to the starting role. Did that towards the end of last year. 1.88 ERA was really, really good. I think he ended up throwing like 104 innings, something like that. And so that's going to have to be inflated. But again, we're coming off a year where we saw Seth Lugo blow right through that, and then throw 8? Was it 8? It wasn't no. Was it 8? No, it wasn't no 8 no hit. 8 shutout innings against I think it was the Giants in his last start. Was phenomenal. And so there's your kind of roadmap. Hopefully for Michael King, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, guys that have started, that have done some good things, but can you count on them? Can you just plug them into the rotation and say we're good? No, I don't think so. No. I think the hope is Michael King, there's your number 3, and then you kind of build from there and hope that one of those guys maybe pops. But at the very least, they're useful bullpen pieces. Drew Thorpe, highly regarded minor leaguer that had a really, really good 2023 season, and is a guy that could potentially help them out this year. Whereas a lot of the arms, I think, in the Padres system, we're all hoping, but knowing, realistically, they're probably not ready for 2024, or at least you shouldn't kind of bank on them being ready. And so Thorpe seems to be a guy that could arrive sooner. We know the Padres are aggressive with that sort of thing. And so they needed arms. They got a bunch of arms. And Kyle Higashioka, who is interesting. Fangraphs had a piece that said he might be the best catcher on the Padres roster right now, which I found interesting with Luis Campusano and his emergence. I don't know if Fangraphs isn't so high on Luis, but that's at least, somewhat promising. If you look at his numbers, they're not going to blow you away. But he seems like he could be a useful piece. What's sad about that is that my assumption is El Gary is no more.
Gary Sanchez gone.
Yeah. One of the most fun parts of the 2023 season, and I'm guessing this means he won't be back in 2024, which is too bad.
Slim shot he comes as a DH, but probably not if you're still trying to trim some payroll. The Padres need pitching. They are bereft of starting pitching. They have no one outside of Darvish and Musgrove that is proven big league resume. So Michael King, as you said, he's immediately your third best starting pitcher. So you need depth at that position. The intriguing one to me is Drew Thorpe. He's a hot shot prospect. He's got lively stuff. He's the guy that you want to get back, that maybe 2 years down the road, everyone's like, oh my gosh, they got Drew Thorpe in that deal. And he's a future frontline, top your rotation guy. So, and as you said, there's no pitchers in the Padres system that are ready to come up next year. and give this team quality starts or innings out of the bullpen. So you're replenishing that, and you're stocking. You're hoping to stockpile innings. That's basically what they did with these 4 pitchers. And Michael King, I'm intrigued. Like, obviously, if the Yankees value him and you're kind of haggling over him a lot, then you get something there. And yeah, when you just look at this deal, it's still a little surprising you didn't get a quality everyday player or an established major league pitcher when you trade Juan Soto. That's still the deal could be good, and you never really know till 2 or 3 years down the road. But it's still it's hard to believe that you traded Juan Soto and you did not get back an everyday major league player. You did not get back an accomplished, proven major league starting pitcher.
Yes. It appears that AJ Preller spoke at some point. I don't know if he was on MLB Network.
I think he's having a press conference. The winter meeting's a little scrum.
A little scrum there.
I think
Gotcha.
It was set up ready to go right as we're going live here.
Gotcha. So we will see. I just saw kind of a couple quotes, but we will see what we hear from him, and we'll have a chance to discuss this again tomorrow with Derek. So a little more time to kind of let all of it marinate and hear what everybody has to say and learn a little bit more about these guys. It seems like people view this as an acceptable return for Juan Soto, given the circumstances, given the fact that he's only around for one more year and all that. And so the initial grade isn't they got fleeced. Like you said, you don't really know. We don't really know, if they won the trade with the Nats, especially with all those being young guys. We just don't know. So the other thing too is like you have to. They freed up a bunch of money in doing this. And so you also have to take into account like what they got with that money, what they picked up on the free agent market. You mentioned Jung-Hoo Lee, that you kind of have to include when you assess the return for Juan Soto, because they wouldn't have those guys if he was, taking up $33 million of their payroll.
Yeah, and I think one reason, whether it's MLB insiders or fans, or even though the return is not wow, they're okay with the return, is because they've been so conditioned that this trade is coming.
Yes.
It's been no secret that the Padres need to make this trade, and you're not going to get back a huge haul. But yeah, this definitely one of Preller's quotes in his presser he's having right now. The exercise always that you have a budget and you're trying to make a team work within the budget. So this trade gives us 2 things: some flexibility, and then also clarity on what the rest of the offseason looks like. So basically what we're saying, they were hamstrung by the Soto deal, and they needed to get a little flexibility. So it'll be interesting. AJ Preller is very creative as a GM, and now he has some financial wiggle room to get creative. We know he likes a certain type of player and prospect, so maybe this frees him up to make some trades. He can take some of that capital he got from the Yankees and maybe move a couple of younger pitchers for a frontline player and things like that. So, and it's not the worst case scenario, because this is still a very talented Padre team. So if you have a little bit more pitching depth, which hopefully the Yankee guys pan out, you sign the Korean outfielder, and if he's like Hassan Kim, then you're not falling off a cliff. You're improving the depth of your team. So you see a roadmap where the Padres can still be competitive and very good next year.
Definitely. Our friend Annie Halbrin from the UT, beloved of amongst Padres fans. Some notes from Preller, still looking for pitching. Opens up opportunities for guys in the farm system. Signing Soto to an extension would have come with a cost, and this opens up the ability to have more controllable players. And I think, those controllable, locked-in, young type guys, that's kind of what this roster has been missing. And so they're kind of replenished a little bit from that standpoint. John
But
Morosi. Go ahead.
yeah, but well, we can sit here and we can spin this 100 different ways, and everyone can say financial flexibility and all that. But I just keep coming back to Juan Soto is a future Hall of Famer, and you had him in your ballpark in San Diego. I'll never forget that first night.
Yeah.
That ballpark was electric. They were printing those Soto jerseys. Fans were buzzing. This was going to be the golden era, a new era, almost like the Lakers of Major League Baseball, like you felt like that. And this is just a step back. It's just a step back, and it's not what that night Padre fans did not expect to end up at this point
No.
this quickly. No way, no how, no shape or form.
Yeah. The famous quote, I feel sorry for all the pitchers when Juan Soto was
Yeah.
asked about eventually playing with Tatis and Machado. Of course, Tatis, a week or so later, PD stuff, and then they get Xander Bogaerts, and then things just kind of didn't pan out this year the way that they would have hoped. A couple others, John Morosi saying from Preller, Fernando Tatis Jr., an option to play center field. Preller said, though, that he's found a home in right, and that Jacob Marcy will have a chance to compete for the center field role during spring training. And Marcy, a guy that kind of had a breakout season in 2023, a guy that fan base is very excited about. So we'll see. I think, there's the question now that Omar poses. Padres have two huge holes in the outfield and are now down to two lefty bats. Who can they get to replace that? And that's a very good question. Jung-Hoo Lee would check both those boxes.
Two of those, but yeah.
And I believe it was John Heyman reporting that the Padres are pursuing him. It looks like he'd probably be due like somewhere 10 to 15 per year plus the posting fee. So you're looking somewhere in like the $15-20 million range, and now they have that money. And a guy that they could, if the contract looks like it did for Ha-Seong Kim, it's 4 years. You got him locked in, a chance to kind of prove who he is, and hopefully keep him around long term. Hopefully they can keep Ha-Seong Kim around long term. Hopefully now there's that money available where Derek and others speculated about them potentially trading him, and doesn't appear that they'll have to do that now, but you don't know. So we'll see. On Peter with an interesting note on Higashioka. Is it in preparation for a Japanese-speaking pitcher? Now, he's from Huntington Beach, but he must have found this quote somewhere. I'm trusting Peter found this from a reputable source and didn't just type this with quotation marks, and here I am reading it. But Kyle learned Japanese to connect with his heritage and better communicate with former teammates. So we'll see. Something to keep in line. Obviously, you Darvish, a Japanese pitcher. But I think, you also communicates very well with his teammates.
Very, very well in English until the media session starts.
Who knows? But interested to see what he brings to the table and how that pairing looks with Luis Campusano, our buddy Rafa, wondering, do they have money to re-sign Snell? I do believe they have money, but I have a tough time seeing them shed 33 million or whatever it is and then pick up 27 million on one player. There's just still too many needs when you consider first base, potentially when you consider two outfield spots, when you consider 1 to 2 spots in the rotation, closer, unless it's Suarez. If it's Suarez, then an 8th inning guy. There's just a lot of work, upgrades in the bench. So there's just a lot of work that's left to be done. And as much as I love Snell, thoroughly enjoyed covering him, Cy Young season, amazing. I just don't see how that fits and that makes sense after doing what they did today.
100%, because then you're right back to the same problems where you have a top-heavy roster, and you need to round out the roster. You need to increase your depth. And also, I think AJ likes this. I think he's going to get a little frisky, get a little wild, because the infield still doesn't make perfect sense with Cronenworth at first base. Might be something cooking, around that, or Song Kim, Derek's favorite trade. Something to tinker there where you can get another frontline pitcher and balance it out a little bit. That just screams AJ to me, like another deal now. And rather than go sign one big fish, he would rather make like 10 more middle range moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morosi's also saying Preller said he'd like to add at least one reliever who can pitch in the 8th or 9th inning. Soto trade affords him the financial flexibility to do so. They've been able to get, before Hader, closer types on the cheap. But, now they've got a little bit more wiggle room. Also, Morosi, Drew Thorpe, 23 years old, could arrive to the Padres and will be a rotation as early as the 2024 season, Preller said. Not a surprise there, but good to hear that from Preller himself. So get an idea of, what the outlook is for Preller and kind of the thought behind this deal was and the guys that they got back in return.
Well, you talked many times in this podcast about if you're going to keep AJ Preller, go full AJ Preller, right? Give him control. Give him a manager that sees things his way, and let's go full Preller. And Preller is apparently, from what we're hearing tonight, he is fully on board with Michael King as a starting pitcher and believes he can be a great 1 through 5 rotation guy. So let's go. In Preller we trust, and let's see what happens here. That's one of the pieces, and we will go from there, right?
Jeff Sanders of the UT did a good job crunching the numbers and has, if you follow him on Twitter, find him on Twitter, a breakdown of all the Padres contracts and where they stand now. And they're at, 145.3 million, which makes sense. I mean, between, say 33 and then 4 million for Grisham, that adds up to kind of the mid 1.8 or so range that they had if they kept those guys around. And then you're having to fill all those roster spots with like 15, maybe 20 million. And now you're looking at like 60 million, and so this of course is including King and Vasquez and Brito and Higashioka and all that. So there's a lot to work with. And I think if you can get past the disappointment and just be like, okay, this is where they are. This is what they had to do. It's a bummer. They maybe didn't have to do this, but this is where they are. I think there's something now fun about like, okay, we get to stock the cupboard. We get to go grocery shopping. We get to go down the snacks aisle and the soda aisle and the candy aisle, pick a bunch of stuff because we just got a paycheck and we can go nuts. We had nothing. We had some stale bread. We had some old slices of provolone cheese that have been sitting around for a few weeks and weren't going to get any better. We got rid of some of that stuff. We also got rid of like a filet mignon, and it was sad because it looked delicious, but I didn't get a chance to enjoy it as much as I wanted to. But we had to part with it. But now we can kind of stock up a little bit, and that's going to be fun going forward once we kind of make peace with this.
Yeah, you're right, but you're still kind of buying like snacks and cup of noodles. You're not getting a ribeye and the best craft beer and a top shelf tequila, Darnay. You're still shopping on the bargains there.
I don't know. I mean, 60 million. They've got some like they can get a legit.
But as you said, you're right. But as you said, don't expect them to give that 33 of that million, 33 of that 60 million to one guy. So it's interesting times. And as you said, this roster is still going to be among Major League Baseball's best rosters. Their payroll will still be, I would imagine, in the top 25% once this all gets strung out. And you still have guys like Hassan Kim, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Xander Bogaerts, which are awesome all-star level, potentially. 3 of those 4 are potentially Hall of Fame players at some point in their career. So they have enough talent and offensive firepower to carry them through. So it's not the dark days of San Diego Padre baseball. This is not a fire sale. This team can still compete, I believe. Some might say I'm crazy, especially with the Diamondbacks loading up with another pitcher tonight and all their young talent in the Dodgers. But I think this is still going to be a much better team next season.
From Bernie Wilson, a quote from AJ Preller: "It's very difficult to make a deal where we're trading a player the caliber of Juan Soto, but if we did that, we wanted to make sure we shored up a bunch of needs. We were able to get some depth with quality, and there's nothing that AJ Preller loves more than depth and quality. So yeah, I mean they got some of that done. There is, and I asked Kyle Glazer that. I was like, it's still a good team, right? They have a chance to do some things, and he wasn't ready to be like, yes, this is a playoff contender. I think because there are a lot of holes to fill. Now you have somebody who's creative and has shown the ability to do that, and so I think there's hope there. But like first base isn't gonna settle itself. Or having somebody that can split time with Jake Cronenworth, because that was a struggle at times in the outfield spots. And there's the hope of Luis Campusano continuing what we've seen in the trajectory that he was on this year, and of course the relievers in the rotation. I just listed a lot of things. Bench, DH. Now Manny might start the year as a DH, but ideally you got to like a legit DH. And so there's a lot that needs to be sorted out. But if done well, then you could see a team that's, yes, this is a team that should have enough to contend for a playoff spot. And as the Diamondbacks showed us, that's all that matters. Get in, and then you can kind of make some things happen. And so that's kind of where they're at.
We talked about revisionist history earlier in this podcast. If you want to talk real history, one thing that could be potentially concerning about this trade is the Padres have a very poor habit of developing pitchers from their minor league system to the major league level. So when you're taking on essentially 3 of the 4 pitchers they acquired are minor league guys that are working their way or in transitioning to the big leagues, that does not bode well for the Padres' history and how they've been able to bring guys who have had minor league success on the mound to the major league level and make them successful here. So that's a little bit of a red flag.
Ruben Niebla, bro.
I know,
Niebla, the pitcher whisperer.
He didn't help Weathers.
That's true. How much of that is Weathers?
I don't know. Did you see 17th of simulation here, his comment?
Which one?
His second one.
Third
one. He wants to give the Padres an F.
Well, I think we have a Yankees fan that's kind of broken into the chat. Because he said in all caps, Juan Mania is in New York. Welcome. So I think this is coming more from a New York perspective than maybe we are comfortable with. Might be a slight bias there from our buddy 17th, but always appreciate him getting into the chat. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I think I just kind of came to grips with this was the path that they were going to have to take, and now you can't really truly evaluate it until you see how they fill out the rest of the roster. And if they land some studs, if it's Jung Hoo Lee, if it's others, then you say, okay, this was worthwhile to shed the salary and to round out the roster. And I had people in my mentions all disappointed and bummed out they're having to do this and angry and we don't have to and yada, yada, yada. And how are they going to contend without Juan Soto? Did we all forget what happened in 2023? 2023 was a real season that happened, and they had Juan Soto with a 925 OPS, and he was really, really good for pretty much the entire season, and the team still stunk for most of the season. Okay? And why? Because they had nobody beyond the top 4, and they were too top heavy. They had no depth. They had nobody that was ready to step in if guys were struggling or injured. The bullpen struggled at points, and offensively they were a mess for most of the year and relied too much on Machado and Bogarts and Soto and Tatis. And when those guys weren't getting it done, nobody was getting it done, with the exception of Ha-Seong Kim and Gary Sanchez in stretches. But and I wrestled around with the same thing. For much of the offseason, I was thinking best version of this team has Juan Soto. And then kind of came around to the idea of them trading him. And, it's just I found myself saying, best version of the team is Juan Soto. Best chance to give you the playoffs. 2023 happened. They had Juan Soto. It didn't work. It wasn't on him. But what have the Angels taught us? What have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani taught us? It's great to have those guys, but you need more than them. And this gives them an opportunity to shore up some other spots that they were weak at. And that caused them to struggle. And I think from that standpoint, this was probably the right move to make, given the position that they were in when they started the postseason or offseason. Again, if you go back to the beginning of 2022 and the last offseason, you probably do things differently. You don't end up in this situation. But given the way 2023 went and where they were going into this offseason, this was probably the direction that they needed to go.
Yeah, and one of the other huge issues with the Padres last season was chemistry, right? Something was wrong. No one could point to exactly what it was. Not saying Soto was a problem. I don't think he was. But sometimes when you take a big personality or someone out of the mix, it just kind of works better, even though counterintuitively you would say there's no way that happens. But just maybe spitballing here, maybe by removing Soto, that forces Xander Bogaerts to take on a bigger role in the clubhouse, which contributes to some positive vibes, which contributes to some better baseball on the field. So we don't know how it's going to work behind the scenes. I don't know who we're going to get kind of head-scratching quotes from about down the hall there. Go talk to that guy down the hall. Somebody's got to fill
Don't ask me.
Yeah, don't ask me. Go talk to those guys. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and he was a guy that I think had wanted to be used in a specific way too. Wanted to hit in certain spots in the lineup and all that. Mm-hmm. And so to have I don't want to be the too many stars and too many divas guy, because I don't know if that was necessarily the case, but like there seemed to be like a hunger and a fight that was missing last year, and I don't want to put that on Juan Soto to any extent, but if you get some younger, hungrier guys, maybe some guys that came up through the system, it just gives you a different dynamic in the clubhouse that maybe could be a good balance with the big personalities there, and maybe less kind of jockeying of like who is the leader, who is the alpha, how do the pieces fit, how do the personalities fit. I don't know.
And let's face it, Juan Soto is going to mash at Yankee Stadium. He is going to get to hit in
a contract year.
Aaron Judge in a contract year, and that short porch that could get pretty aggressive there, offensive statistically wise for Mr. Juan Soto. Yeah, he would, as much as it pains Padre fans where you think Fernando Tatis Jr. is a perfect fit for Petco Park and the fan base here and the showmanship and his Dominican roots, Juan Soto is a nice fit in Yankee Stadium with that fan base and the ballpark dimensions there. So
there's some excitement. If you go back to last episode, Derek was very excited about Jason Dominguez. That did not come through. He's recovering from an injury, and so he's going to miss part of next season. So I don't know if that was what kind of took him out of the mix. They do need pitching, and so obviously they filled those needs. And so without an outfielder in return, they're going to have to kind of hit the market, and we'll see what happens there. With the winter meetings all finished up, the work is far from finished for AJ Preller. It is just getting going. Now that he's got his manager, and now that he's got some clarity on what he's got to work with the rest of this offseason to build the roster for 2024. Any final thoughts, Todd Strain, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, it would have been nice within this package if these players, they could have also gotten a Dominguez or a Spencer Jones. I think one of those guys would have really sweetened this package, and I think Padre fans would be looking, and MLB insiders would be looking at this package much differently if they could have looped in one of those mega prospect outfielders with some juice. And of course, Spencer's a local kid from San Diego, which would have been awesome. So.
Yeah. That would have been really cool. That was a guy, again, thinking about like the surprises when the deal finally got announced and came to fruition. I was like, maybe Spencer Jones or maybe Matt Carpenter to free up some more money. It didn't happen. It was all as expected and all as it was laid out through basically the entire day. And that's what we have. Juan Soto, Trent Grisham gone, bunch of pitchers, including Drew Thorpe and Michael King, a catcher, to San Diego for the Yankees, and a whole bunch of money for AJ Preller to spend over the course of the next few months.
Do you think AJ's going out in Nashville at the honky tonk bars celebrating, or is he right back to his hotel room, his dark hotel room, just grinding on statistics and potential trades.
He's got like some buddy that works at Belmont in like the basketball director of basketball operations.
Oh, there you go.
And there's like a late night run at Belmont. And so once
There
he's
you
done
go.
with the media, he's going to do a late night run, get some Nashville hot chicken on the way home, catch 3 hours of sleep, early flight in the morning, and the fun begins. That's my guess.
And Belmont can hoop. They can hoop.
Belmont can hoop. The Bruins. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a legit program. Thanks, Todd. Thanks to everybody for watching, listening, and chiming in. And I think we'll be back with another one of these on Thursday. We will see you then.